Welcome to the Programmatic Digest podcast, a weekly roundup of top programmatic news with fellow programmatic ninjas. I'm your host, Ellen Parker, your very own programmatic sensei. Thank you for joining us today. Before we get into today's conversation, subscribe, like, and share. Leave us a comment. If you need any more details, visit our website, programmaticdigest.com, programmaticdigest.com, where you'll be prompted for our new weekly or monthly newsletter. It only alerts you when there's a new episode live. So thank you so much for all your support and love, and remember to be curious. Enjoy the conversation. Hey everyone, and hello, Kerel. Welcome to the Programmatic Digest podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Ellen. Thanks for having me on. I'm super excited about this conversation.
I am just as excited, or a little bit more maybe. You are, for those who doesn't know Kerel, he is the Chief Marketing Officer at LiveIntent. He's also the founder and host of the Minority Report podcast, among crazy other things that he's doing. But how about you just let anyone that may not know you yet, who you are and what you do at LiveIntent?
Yeah, sure. At LiveIntent.
LiveIntent.
Yeah. That's all right. People always,
it's the end of the day.
They do that. And it's the whole live thing. People do that all the time. I'm sure
it is LiveIntent.
Yes.
I'm not gonna edit anything out too. I'm gonna let it go. So let's get into it.
Yeah, sure. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Kerel Cooper. I'm the CMO at LiveIntent. I've been in the MarTech and AdTech space now for 20 plus years or so, various roles from running ad operations teams on the publisher side of our industry. Most notably, I was at Advanced Digital, which is a local news publisher for almost 8 years before I moved over to LiveIntent in 2014. And if you're unfamiliar with LiveIntent, we are a MarTech company. We provide monetization and advertising solutions for publishers and brands to help them acquire, retain, and monetize their audience, all within email newsletters and beyond. And as Ellen also said, I'm the co-host and co-founder of the Minority Report podcast, which focuses on highlighting people of color, women, and the LGBTQ plus community leaders within business, media, and technology.
And I absolutely love the podcast. I'm not up to date, I will admit. But anytime I have a chance to just not hear directly what's going on in our industry, because there's so much going on, but just to hear something that is still somewhat related and give me hope about our industry, I always refer to your podcast, and then to Code Switch from NPR. That's another podcast that's really fun to listen to and highlights diversity. That makes sense.
Well, hey, anytime someone tells me that my podcast is in the same level as Code Switch from NPR, I'm doing something right. So thank you.
You definitely are. I think we were talking about it before our recording, how much of a fan I am, because again, I think the key of success is just studying and looking at people that are successful, people that have really outshined, and people that you can relate to. And I think you're one of those people for me. So I'm super excited about today's conversation.
Appreciate that.
Which is a great segue into what we're going to talk about. So as you mentioned, LiveIntent is a provider in our industry. I've used LiveIntent in a few campaigns before via either DSP as a purchase segment already completed, or with some of the services you offered. At that time, it was still email marketing. It was considered email newsletter marketing. Is that still the case?
Yeah, I would say the majority of our business, yes, is definitely takes place within the inbox. That is our bread and butter. That is what we've built our business on over the last 12 years is helping, again, publishers and brands execute within email newsletters. With that said, as we approach the death of the third-party cookie, right, and as our company continues to evolve, and as publishers and brands continue to evolve, we found ourselves in this position to really help our customers figure out their first-party data strategy moving forward. And that's mainly because, again, we've operated in an environment now that the browsers are trying to get to, right? So when you think about no third-party cookies, when you think about user consent or opt-in, when you think about heavy privacy regulations, right? You're talking about email and email newsletters,
Yeah.
right? And because we also see over 200 million unique readers on a monthly basis, and a unique reader for us is an email open or an email address, right?
Gotcha.
We are in a great position to continue to help our customers within the inbox, but also help them beyond email. And that brings us to our new identity solutions that we're rolling out, which we call our Authenticated Bridge framework, which is really set up in a way to help publishers resolve a higher percentage of users on site, which will then lead to helping them better monetize their site traffic as well too. And again, at the core of that is what we call our non-ID, which is essentially a one-to-one connection to an email hash back in our graph. Our integration works through Prebid and the index header, right? So anyone that has Prebid installed or the index header can install our identity module onto their web pages and accomplish the things that I just said in terms of resolution and monetization.
Industry-wise, what do you think? Where do you think the industry sentiment is in terms of the service, like the solution you're offering to either the buy side and the sell side?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in a place right now where publishers are trying to test out multiple solutions, right? They're trying to figure out their path forward. I think marketers are also coming around to figuring out what is their path forward here post third-party cookie, and I think our solution fits squarely in the middle of that. You know, a few weeks back, the CEO of Deep Intent, he posted on his LinkedIn account, and it got picked up by a trade organization. And he said the top three cookieless identity players in terms of adoption right now was LiveRamp, the Trade Desk, and LiveIntent. And so we sit squarely right there with the big players in the space. And again, I think it is for us, it's a natural evolution of the services that we offer because we've operated in the inbox now for 12 years.
Got it. And so I'm just going to recap for my own brain, but so it's slightly different than what LiveRamp and the Trade Desk are offering, but so it is a solution that we should consider with theirs or either or
no, I think it's considering right now, considering the space that we are in and everyone trying to figure out their path forward. And let's be honest, right? You know, publisher A is completely different from publisher B and publisher C. And same thing with on the marketer side, right? So for us, test all the solutions that are out there, right? And you figure out as a publisher, as a marketer, which solutions are going to work best for you, depending on the goals that you're trying to accomplish. So I wouldn't say that it's one or the other. I would say give them all a shot.
Yeah, I love that because that's what I've been saying in previous interviews. Most of the guests are aligned with what you're saying, and it makes sense. You have to test more than one. You can't just put everything in one basket. And if you are, then you have to really monitor and make sure that you're staying on top of how fast that technology is evolving.
Yeah. And to add to that, that's how we coach our customers as well too. We don't say to them, you know, use our solution, don't worry about anything else. What we do is we give them the value that's behind our solution and why they need to use our solution to accomplish their goals. But every publisher and every marketer out there should be thinking about how they build a holistic first-party data strategy moving forward, right? And that includes email, that includes contextual, that includes behavioral, that includes and probably many other avenues as well too, right? There isn't going to be one standard solution that's just going to be the end all be all. It's gonna be multiple solutions in my opinion.
Got it. And I think that leads to the conversation I really wanted to have because coding you from your article that you wrote in the Ad Exchanger. I think it was a couple of months ago. How can publisher gird their futures? You said diversify your content, but don't hand over your best work to the walled gardens without edging your bets. So walk us through your thoughts here for the article. So those who haven't read the article yet, it's on Ad Exchanger, and I will make sure to link it in our show notes. But you basically break it down into three, like focus on what is working. So focus on the positive, which is a big value of mine, seeing positivity.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing that you mentioned is also like whatever we are doing right now will impact our futures. And you're speaking directly in terms to publishers here, but I think I read it too, but it reflected into some of the strategies I'm looking in right now. And then experiment early. That's what we just talked about, right? We need to be early adopters. I think our industry struggles with that. I think we're really good at adapting, but after things went down, after it went from 0 to 100, we're like, oh, okay, let's get onto this. So talk to us, like in your own words, what first made you write the article? Because I thought it spoke really loudly to both sides.
Yeah, and I would say, again, going back to earlier in my career, like I said, I've been in the space now for 20 plus years, but the first 14 years I spent at publishers. And so I'm really passionate about seeing publishers succeed. And I really have a great understanding and empathy for what publishers go through and how they're trying to move their business forward. And I think as we think about the death of the third-party cookie, there's an opportunity here for a lot of publishers to really take back control and to control their own destiny moving forward, meaning to have more say over their monetization strategy, to make sure that they're not leaking content or leaking data and losing it to other places, right? Okay. And so my whole point of writing this was really to say, if you're a publisher and you're not acting on your first party data strategy at this point in time, you need to really get going. And if I recall correctly, I laid out some examples of some positive things that Axios has done, that the New York Times has done, that Washington Post has done as sort of three leaders in the space. And whether you're a large publisher or a small publisher, you can look to those three to as an example of it's time to get moving. It's time to start testing different solutions. It's time to start asking really, really tough questions internally and externally, right? And it's time to be a leader and not wait until the clock is done ticking on the death of the third-party cookie to get moving and to follow others. That was my whole point of sort of writing it, Ellen.
Right. That's a great point. Because I always wonder. So my experience is mostly on the buy side. So I always wondered, like, okay, how is that affecting a smaller to even a medium-sized publisher? Because I knew that eventually the relationship we have with the sales side, we will become more almost like on a personal level. We are going to grow partnerships that never was as direct that it was before because of the deprecation of third-party cookies. And I think it's great. I think it's great. I never was a big fan of, just throwing the net and then letting see what we catch. No, it has to be strategic. Like we can't afford anymore to just do it that way. And so what is your point of view on that? So let me rephrase my question. I'm asking, do you think small to medium-sized publishers should have a different approach? I mean, the Washington Post and all of them, Axios, they're pretty big publishers. Right. As we can guess. But for somebody with with less traffic coming to their website, for instance, so less traffic coming via the publisher, what do you think they should do?
Yeah, great question, because obviously not everyone is going to have the resources of the Washington Post or the New York Times, so on and so forth, right? I still think it comes down to that individual publisher, right? So One thing, regardless of whether you're big or a small publisher, having and solidifying a great email newsletter strategy, I think is super important, right? And obviously, I'm saying that partly because I work at Live Intent, but also partly because if you think about consumers, right, that's how they want to receive information. I mean, email newsletters is the number one way consumers like to interact with brands and with publishers, especially, and that number has even gone up over the last year and a half since we've all been home. Not technically a year and a half yet, but you get what I'm saying, right? So I think building
Yes.
a strong email newsletter program, regardless of whether you're big or small, super important. It's a great way to have that direct connection with the consumer. I think that's one. On top of that, investing in content, right? Obviously,
Mm,
people are not opening your newsletters or coming to your websites so that they can see ads, right?
yeah.
That's a byproduct of getting of growing your consumer base, right?
Yeah.
So, or it's an output of that, right? So, investing in the content and really understanding why people are consuming your content, why they're coming to your website, why they're opening your newsletters. I think those are things, regardless whether you're big or small, you can do. The other thing that I think is going to become more important as we get closer to the death of the third party cookie and even beyond that, for mid-sized and smaller publishers,
Mhm.
is think about second party data relationships, right? So if you are a mid to small publisher, if you have a unique offering in terms of the content that you offer, right? Figure out how you can partner with someone else that's interested in your content and maybe you're interested in their audience, right? I think
Mm,
there's a play for second party data relationships to get bigger. We've talked about second party data for a long time in our
yeah.
industry. I don't think
Yeah.
it's really ever taken off, right?
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
But now is maybe that opportunity, especially if you're a mid to small publisher. So those would be two pieces of advice that I would give.
And it goes back to what I was saying, like that direct partnership. Like this is when I'm more likely to during a media strategy or a planning period season, I would say, because this is always more than longer than we want to admit. That's where I would consider getting into those type of strategies. So second party data is definitely something that needs to be considered. I had a quick question and I forgot. This happens very often.
All good.
A different time of the day. It's not even. All right. So we talk about small to medium size publishers. Your recommendation was partnership with others, newsletter. Oh, okay. So about newsletter. So
Yeah.
so how what is a good what is three things you tell a brand when it comes to implementing newsletter strategy into their media mix or their media plan? And why I'm asking that is because working with a B2B client, very specific and niched, but brought up a few newsletter opportunity. Like this makes sense. You are trying to target decision makers, managers
Mm-hmm.
at their own time. They control when they open, like you said, they control if they open or not. Not interested. Tried it a couple years ago. Is not like how should I address that conversation? Because I think it will be such a great strategy for them. One of the strategy that they're running.
Now, so this is someone to advertise in email newsletters or to grow their own newsletter program.
Advertising, email, newsletter.
Advertising.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, without knowing who that marketer
Yeah.
or who that customer is, right?
Mhm.
I would say the first thing is going back and looking at the strategy, the previous strategy, and why it didn't work for them. Because across our platform, we have seen a ton of success with a wide variety of different marketers, especially over the last year, right? Because over the last year, you've seen marketing budgets get cut, right? So, what does that mean for marketers? That means that they need to really double down on platforms that are really returning the ROI for them, right? Because just because your marketing budget gets cut doesn't mean that your goals get cut. You still have goals
You
to
have to,
hit, right?
you have to deliver.
Absolutely. And so as we've seen over the last year, as we've seen email newsletter consumption go up and engagement go up on the publisher side, we've also seen marketers really double down with us on the ad side, right? Because at the end of the day, they look at us as a performance network, and we perform really well. We're in over 2,500 publishers and brands, newsletters. Like I said, we see over 200 million uniques a month. And for us, just so you know, as a marketer, right, we only run an auction and deliver an ad campaign when a user actually opens the newsletter, and then if they have to download images, to download images. So we don't run an auction based on sends. We run an auction based on the person actually opening the newsletter. So not only as a marketer, not only are you targeting publishers' most engaged audience, because they're the ones that have handed over their email address and said, send me newsletters, but you're targeting their most engaged audience when they're actually engaged with the content in their inbox. And so that's why our platform performs well. So I would want to go back and look at your customer and see what strategy they tried to implement in the past and why maybe that didn't work, and really talk to them about the value of email newsletters, because that value has never been as high as it is today.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why I suggested that is because I never was a big advocate for newsletter. I think the newsletter I've signed up before have abused my trust.
Well, that's a problem. That's a problem. Yeah.
In terms of delivery in my inbox, and I'm just like, yo, chill. But now I think some of the publishers I'm following, and I'm naming them, Ad Exchanger is doing really great media posts. eMarketer sends you the one thingy. I actually just the one chart. Sorry, I just signed up to LiveIntent one newsletter. So all of them are weekly. Yeah. So if it's a weekly cadence, I am happy because it's controlled and I can open it whenever I can. The U of Digital is doing a great job at newsletter too. So those some of my favorites.
If I can add one point to that, right? Because I think you bring up something very interesting, right? In terms of maybe your trust being abused by a publisher in the past. Yeah. I always like to say that the email newsletter is really the greatest digital contract you can have between a publisher and a brand and a consumer, right? Because you are essentially shaking hands, right? And saying, I'm going to give you my email address, right? Which is very personal and valuable to me. And in return, I'm expecting you to provide me a service, right? And that service can be sending me great content. But at any moment and point in time when you don't think the publisher or the brand is living up to their end of the bargain, you can end that contract by hitting the unsubscribe button. And that's why it's also super valuable as well too, from a consumer perspective.
There is one that I cannot unsubscribe. It's never worked. I'm gonna call them out. I don't care. It's my Fitness Pal. The newsletter is. I keep unsubscribing. Thank you. Thank you for your services, but I'm not interested anymore. It keeps coming, but it's one of those things, and I wonder if the browser. My browser is just. I need to reset something on my browser, but it's very interesting. But I do remember the question I wanted to ask really quickly before we pivot into the closing segment. It's Apple's latest release, IDFA. Is that, I would assume it would have a big effect on your day-to-day or your client or your services that you offer, right? Like the latest release.
Yeah, for us, not all that much. Again, because remember, we don't operate within app, right? Email newsletters, right? You can open on in the Gmail account. You can open an Outlook. It's the mail client, right? So for us, it still is business as usual for us and for our clients. The only thing that I will say about that is the email address to every consumer out there is essentially your digital passport. You use it for everything you do online. You use it to log into social sites, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, your social sites are. You use it to buy things, whether that's on eBay, Amazon, your favorite retailer.
Yeah.
And you even use it to log into streaming services, right?
Yep.
If you've got, Netflix or Sling TV or Hulu, it all starts with your email address. So at the end of the day, there isn't much you can do today from a digital perspective without your email address. And so, I find it hard to believe that email and the email address won't play some type of role in the future of digital marketing. It has to, because of, again, it's a part of everyone's everyday life, right? And so, that is my answer to your question. One, the changes really haven't affected our business and our customers at Live Intent. And two, while I think, a lot of the changes that are being enacted, I think are good, because it has the consumer and consumer privacy at the heart of it. And that's always super important and should always be first. But I still feel at the end of the day, email is super important in many aspects in our digital lives.
That's a great answer. And I think that's the best way for us to close this segment. I have no follow-up question, which doesn't happen very often, but I'm definitely grateful for the major bars and gems you just dropped. So let's go ahead and close with some fun questions I like to ask. So, what are 3 fun facts you can share with us and the listeners?
3 fun facts about me. All right. One, I love to cycle. I got into cycling probably about 5 years ago.
Oh, nice.
I completed my first century last year, 100 miles.
Wow, great. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So that's one fun fact. Let's see. Another one, my favorite sport.
I could have guessed that because I follow you on Instagram and I see you all the time sharing. And I'm always like, dang, I got to get up and at least walk around this house or something. So I got to get myself up. But yeah, that's great.
Thank you. On the flip side of that, the other fun fact is, like, it's barbecue season and I love grilling and I love cooking. So that'll be the other thing you'll start to see more and more on my Instagram account is me outside grilling and cooking.
I may have to mute you then for a little bit. I don't know. Because I have a really good friend of mine and her Instagram is Palette Awakener. And she's always visiting, and she's like a food critic, and she's always visiting these restaurants in the 757 area. So Virginia Beach area up to DC, and she travels sometimes, and I'm always drooling. I told her, because I love you, sis. Otherwise, I should mute you because I have to get up every time I see something on your story. But anyway.
Well, I work off I burn the calories with the cycling and then I add them back on with the barbecue.
There you go. Life is sweet.
There you go. And the third one is my favorite sport is baseball. I'm a huge New York Mets fan and it's baseball season. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping to get back out there to watch some games this year.
Oh, yeah. That's great. I wonder if, do you know if they're going to have public games?
Yeah.
Like I know the NBA has not said that.
Yeah. So baseball right now, the Mets, I think, allow 20 to 30% capacity within the stadium. Okay. Yeah. Obviously the difference between the NBA and baseball is outdoors, right? Yeah. But I think as we get deeper into the summer, hopefully, fingers crossed, numbers, COVID cases continue to go down and they'll allow more people back. Yep.
For sure. Okay. So the next question is, what is the latest book or Audible you've read or listened to?
So here you go. I got this one right here and handy, right? Uh-huh. So we are actually about to start a book club. We're revitalizing our book club and our marketing team at Live Intent. And this is the book that we will be reading. So I need to start reading this book.
So how does the book club work? So you guys read it and then you meet?
Yes. Yeah. So we all decide together as a group what book we want to read. And then we set a date. Everyone has to read the book by then. And then we get together and we usually try to pick a marketing book, and our discussions are usually around what we've learned from the book and then how can we apply it to what we do at Live Intent from a marketing perspective.
Can I join that book club? That sounds really cool. I keep just like be silent and just listen to you guys. I am part of a book club too. It's a morning meetup, and we meet every morning. It's a group of entrepreneurs. I just hop on the call every morning, and we have a business coach, and we literally read the same book, and we read a chapter or two, depending on how large the chapter, every single day. And I've joined in February, and we're on like our fifth book so far. And the one we're reading right now is called Dreams Are Built Overnight by David Shenz.
Okay.
But right before that was Atomic Habit by James Clear. And that one was really good. I strongly recommend that one. It's not 100% marketing, but man, I can definitely say your team or even yourself, because I've applied that as in my career and my work, but also my personal life. So
yeah,
super great book to read. All right. So last question before we close is, if you had to give your younger self an advice as you started in the industry, like a freshman who started in this industry, what would it be?
It would be to show up as yourself and be your authentic self as much as you possibly can be. I think I think a lot of people that are breaking into industries, especially people of color, women, LGBTQ plus community, and other underrepresented groups. I think far too often we code switch and we don't be our true selves. And I feel like when you do that, you lose a bit of yourself as well too. And maybe you're not performing as well as you could be performing because you're not really comfortable, right? And so I think the more we can all be comfortable with who we are, the more we can all be our true selves and show up as our authentic selves, I think the better we will be at work and in life in general. And so that's what I would go back and tell myself.
Wow, that's so perfect. No better way to end the interview, because I've code switched and I still find myself code switching sometime. And I know that sometimes people tell you, but you got to play the game. And I'm like, yeah, but if the game has to change who you are, what game are we playing?
All right.
So I love that. And that's why I'm such a big fan of your work and the Minority Report podcast, because it was really, it came in my life. It filled in a little void in my life, because just like the reason why you started, I remember in one of your episodes, you talked about why you started is because of the lack of diversity at conferences. I mean, I used to go to conferences and being the only Black girl like in the whole room. And I used to look around, but at an ad agency, because again, my experience is mainly at ad agencies, it was the same thing. One of the only ones in office at that time. So it's really refreshing to see that, all right, I'm not the only one feeling that, but at the same time, like people like yourself and Eric and other guests on your podcast are absolutely fighting for that. So thank you so much for dropping by. We're so excited to have you. I know we're gonna cross paths eventually, but
Absolutely.
Thank you again for making the time.
Glad to be here. Thank you, Ellen, for having me. Enjoyed the conversation. And looking forward to the day when we can all get back together in person and meet in person as well.
And eat your barbecue.
There you go.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your love and support. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you have any questions, feedback, or just simply want to say hi, email us at info@programmatic.js.com. You can also visit the website, programmatic.js.com, where we're always looking for guest hosts. We're also looking for sponsors. So hit us up if you're interested.